Have you ever wondered where like the next big wave of tech innovation is like brewing? You know, like forget Silicon Valley for a second. Just picture this. There's this vibrant West African city, and it's like rapidly transforming into a digital powerhouse. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, that really makes you think about, where the usual suspects for innovation, might be seeing some competition from some unexpected places.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today in this deep dive. We're going to be looking at cotonou. It's the economic heart of Benin, and we're going to explore its burgeoning tech scene and really try to understand why people are calling it the potential Silicon Valley of West Africa. We've gone through a ton of articles and reports all about Cotonou's tech ecosystem, and we really want to uncover what's driving this change and, why Cotonou's story is so interesting right now. So, yeah. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so it's not just a few isolated success stories, right? We're really talking about these underlying factors that suggest that there's like a real sustainable ecosystem that's taking shape.
That's exactly right. And a big part of that foundation we saw from, looking at all this stuff is the emergence of these really strong tech hubs. Now, you're probably already familiar with innovation hubs, these collaborative spaces that really help nurture startup growth. In Cotonou, two names kept coming up over and over again. The first one is Itra Labs.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Itra Labs is its history. Being one of the first hubs in Benin suggests that they were super instrumental in those initial stages of building the community. Think about it like they were planting the first seeds. And the things they offered, like co-working space, mentorship, and connections to investors, those are the classic things you need to get early stage ventures, off the ground.
It really seems like they were the pioneers. They really laid the groundwork. And then we also have the Cotonou Digital Center. And this feels like a more recent thing and maybe something that's a bit more centrally organized.
Yeah, for sure. The digital center seems like it was designed to take that initial, grassroots energy and then give them a more state-of-the-art environment to help them really accelerate things. They have all these modern facilities, workshops, training. It's all geared towards scaling up digital adoption and supporting solutions that can have a wider impact. It's like moving from a bunch of individual gardens to a more organized and, resource agricultural center.
So you have these hubs acting as incubators, and then we're starting to see all these really dynamic sectors start to grow. These are really the engines driving Cotonou's tech growth. And fintech is a really major one, right?
Oh, absolutely. The rise of financial technology in a lot of emerging economies is often a direct response to very specific challenges and opportunities that come up from increased mobile phone usage.
And in Cotonou, one example that really stands out is Kia Pay. It was founded by Gilles Kounou back in 2017, and it's described as sort of a central point for mobile money payments. And as you know, that's a super crucial part of the financial landscape in a lot of countries in Africa.
The thing that is really fascinating about Kia Pay, if you think about it, is how many different payment options it works with. Like it integrates MTN, mobile money, Moves Money, Orange Money, T-Money, Airtel, Visa, MasterCard, and Wave. That's a lot. And that inclusivity is so important. It's not limited to just one or two big players. It embraces all the diverse ways that people handle their money. And, they've even expanded outside of Benin to Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. And that really shows you how much demand there is in the region and how scalable their solution is.
Yeah, it really shows that they're meeting a real need throughout the region. And then we see this other really exciting area starting to emerge, e-commerce. And there's this company as World Tech founded by Richard Adrado. And they're doing some really cool things. They're not just like reselling existing gadgets. They're actually making their own smart devices.
Yeah, that's a really key difference. They're going beyond just being a retailer. They're moving into actually producing hardware like watches, glasses, and laptops. And that's a big step. It shows they're building local capacity and that they're trying to address the specific needs of the African market. They even have this flagship product, the Watch. It has this anti-theft feature, and that's a perfect example of technology that's specifically designed to deal with a very real problem that people face in urban areas.
It's that kind of problem solving on the ground that really seems to drive innovation in these new tech centers. And then, of course, we have the rise of mobile app development. With smartphone usage becoming so widespread, it makes sense that we're seeing a surge in apps that are designed for very specific local needs.
And the really important point is that these aren't just like carbon copies of apps that you would see somewhere else. These developers are creating solutions specifically for their communities. They're adjusting things like healthcare. There's Go Medical. It was also founded by Gilles Kounou. And it makes scheduling appointments much easier. And education is another area too. It's all about building relevant and impactful tools within their own context.
So we have all these dynamic sectors that are starting to take off, but what's actually fueling this whole ecosystem? Well, all the stuff we read pointed to proactive government support and policy initiatives as being a big factor.
Yeah, government backing can be a really big deal for growing a thriving tech environment. It can provide essential resources, establish regulations that encourage growth, and it sends a message that this sector is important to the country's economy.
And the Beninese government seems to be very active in doing this. In June of 2022, they created this thing called the Information Systems and Digital Agency, or ASIN for short. And it seems like a really significant move because they basically brought together 4 different organizations to streamline all their digital efforts.
Yeah, if you think about it, that consolidation really suggests they're taking a more unified and strategic approach to digital transformation. They merged together organizations that focused on digital development, IT systems, cybersecurity, and universal access to communications. And that shows that they're really committed to looking at the whole ecosystem from the infrastructure all the way to security.
Yeah, and it's not just about setting up some agency. They're actually launching programs too. Like the Benin Connect Day program. It was started by As World Tech with support from the government. And they're trying to provide affordable laptops and internet access to students, artisans, and professionals. That's a direct investment in improving digital skills and developing the workforce.
Exactly. They're trying to make it easier for people to get involved and give them the digital tools they need to participate in today's economy. And programs like this can have a huge knock-on effect throughout the entire ecosystem.
And of course, none of this could happen without the infrastructure to support it all. We're talking about connectivity and access.
Yeah, a really strong and reliable digital infrastructure is absolutely essential to the success of any tech hub. Because without good internet and good telecommunications networks, even the best ideas are going to have trouble taking off.
And the numbers seem to be going in the right direction. Back in 2021, internet penetration in Benin reached about 42%. And the sources we looked at say that this is because of investments they've made in broadband and more competitive pricing. That's huge for connectivity.
Yeah, seeing that upward trend is a really good sign. Greater internet penetration means that you have a larger potential user base for all these digital services. And online businesses have more opportunities to grow. And you see a lot of collaboration between the government and private companies. They're deploying fiber optic networks and expanding 4G LTE services. And that shows that they're really committed to improving connectivity all over the country.
Now, another really important ingredient is talent. Because you can have all the infrastructure in the world, but you need skilled people to actually drive innovation. And it looks like Cotonou is paying attention to its educational institutions.
Yeah, investing in human capital is always key. A strong pipeline of skilled developers, engineers, and entrepreneurs is what makes a tech ecosystem grow and become sustainable in the long run.
One place that really stood out is the Université de Bomekalavi. They call it UAC for short. And they have all these programs in computer science, engineering, and IT. And it's really cool how they partner with tech hubs like Labs. It gives students the chance to get real-world experience, which seems super important. It's all about bridging the gap between what you learn in school and what you need to know in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Theoretical knowledge is important, but you also need that hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And these collaborations give students amazing opportunities to build real skills, network with people who are already working in the industry, and maybe even develop their own startup ideas. And we can't forget about vocational training centers either. They offer courses in things like coding, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship. And they're so important because they address those really immediate skill shortages and help create a culture of innovation and self-employment.
So it seems like there's a ton of positive momentum happening here. But the stuff we read also gave a balanced view. They pointed out that it's not all sunshine and roses. There are definitely challenges that Cotonou is going to have to overcome.
It's really important to understand that this isn't easy. Building a successful tech ecosystem is complicated, and there are always going to be obstacles. And the first step is just recognizing what those challenges are so we can start figuring out how to solve them.
One of the big ones seems to be access to funding. A lot of startups have trouble getting that crucial early-stage capital they need to grow.
Yeah, that's a really common problem in a lot of emerging tech hubs. It's so important for them to develop local angel investor networks and to attract foreign venture capital. That's how they're going to get the financial resources that startups need to grow.
Another thing that comes up a lot is the regulatory environment. The policies that are put in place need to support innovation, and they have to be able to adapt quickly because technology is always changing.
Yeah, an agile regulatory framework that is friendly to businesses can make a huge difference in how easy it is to start and run a tech company. And it's so important for policymakers to be talking to people who are actually working in the tech industry. That way they can make sure that regulations are helpful and that they're not accidentally stopping innovation.
And then finally, even though they've made a lot of progress with internet penetration, digital literacy is still a problem, especially in more rural areas.
Yeah, it's not enough to just give people access to the internet. You have to make sure that they have the skills and knowledge to use it effectively. And we need to address that gap through education and training programs. That's how we make sure that everyone can benefit from the digital economy. And it's also really important to make sure that people know how to stay safe online.
So just to recap everything for you, we looked at how Cotonou is becoming this potential tech hub in West Africa. And there are a few things driving this. First, you have this whole ecosystem of tech sectors that are growing, like fintech, e-commerce, and mobile app development. Then you have a government that's being proactive and putting forward-thinking policies in place. And you also have a digital infrastructure that's constantly getting better. And last but not least, you have all these talented people who are being trained at these amazing educational institutions. And we can't forget about how important those hubs like Atri Labs and the Cotonou Digital Center are. And of course, companies like Kia Pay and As World Tech are making a huge difference too.
And as we wrap up, it's important to keep in mind that even though there are still some challenges to overcome, things like access to funding, navigating the regulatory environment, and improving digital literacy, Cotonou's tech scene is really promising. They have all the basic ingredients they need, and things are really starting to take off.
I totally agree. It's a really interesting story about a city that's embracing the opportunities of the digital age. So when you think about the global landscape of innovation, maybe the question we should be asking ourselves isn't who are the big players right now? Maybe the question is where will the next big breakthrough come from? Could it be Cotonou, a place with its own unique energy and perspective? It could be writing a whole new chapter in the world of technology. It's definitely something to think about.